Have you ever not slept for so long that you started hallucinating? What was your experience? Ex-addict. Was driving home after a 3-day meth bender. Needed food, so drove into a McDonald's drive-thru. When asked for my order, I replied, "McChicken meal, please." Then they asked me again and I said, "McChicken meal, please." Then they asked me again and I was like, "Can't you duck and hear me? McChicken meal." And that's when I realized I wasn't actually saying anything, I was just replying in my head. I used to abuse Adderall and would stay up 3 days straight working on bullshit projects that I never finished. Anyway, one time I was at the end of a 3-day bender where I had taken about 10 days worth of Adderall. As I laid down to sleep, I started hearing my mom arguing with my brother and his girlfriend. It went on for a long time and I was like, surely they have to be at work and this shit will end soon. Eventually my brother's baby started to cry and the adults were too busy arguing to calm her down. I said duck that and stormed out of the bedroom, down the stairs, and the house was completely empty. 2 triple stacks and ate 2 Adderalls with it. I worked almost an entire 24-hour shift at a steak and shake, was running MFN circles around everybody else. Worked second and third the same day. Got off at 7 a.m., went and smoked a couple blunts, then went back to work at like 11 a.m. until midnight. Then was up for 2 more days. Shit was wild. I've been sober from everything, I don't even smoke cigarettes no more. I don't know WTF, I used to be thinking doing that shit to myself, forgot to add how long I've been clean. Almost 12 years. Congrats on getting clean. Thank you. Definitely feels so much better. In the last post, I was up for 4 days straight. No sleep at all. When I crashed. I don't remember much, only certain parts. A buddy of mine landed a painting job working inside of a big commercial building and he basically stayed in the place for 6 days straight smoking crystal meth and painting to meet his deadline and avoid hiring a crew to help him. On the 6th day the building caught fire and he ran into the lobby and was pulling people out into the streets and yelling to call 911. The firemen showed up and couldn't locate a fire because there was none. He was hallucinating. I feel like paint fumes also had something to do with it. 6 days of meth and paint fumes, no wonder he thought the building was on fire, his brain probably was. Yeah, after 70 hours or so. It's pretty disorienting and rational thinking starts to get very slow. The hallucinations are not realistic but are more like gaps in your vision that are shaped like things. Might see a silhouette at a distance or briefly around a corner. Very difficult to function in this state. Would not recommend. For me the sleep afterwards isn't very quality either. I usually wake up feeling shitty still. It feels like I am stressing in my sleep. Indeed. Especially with caffeine, which tends to mess with your system in unpleasant ways after so many hours awake. Yes. Caffeine doesn't wake up but inhibits the tired bit of your brain. When you are seriously sleep deprived already the results are unpleasant. I've had skin crawling, profuse sweating, bucket loads of anxiety. Ducking shadow people. It's bad for you, you shouldn't do it. But if you're asking this question, you're the type to try. Remember it's not real and relax. Go to sleep. For a while when I was active duty I got really paranoid about the shadow people for obvious reasons. You have no idea the relief I felt when I found out I wasn't the only one who saw them. I really thought I was losing it but man I was just exhausted. An ex of mine called me and asked if he could come sleep with me as he hadn't been able to sleep for days, and was seeing things and he felt safe around me. As we were still friends I said yes. When he came over he said that he had been trying to hook up with girls but couldn't do it as their faces were turning into demons and he was afraid he would hurt them. Needless to say I didn't sleep myself that night and the next day we took him to the doctor for meds for his insomnia. There needs to be more people like you in the world. In the same way with my ex. We're still friends and found out we were better off that way. We'll always be there for each other and love each other but in a different way. I went roughly 4 days on 5 hours sleep total. I could function fine but I would just constantly hear things like people mumbling right next to me. Yeah, it's not like you see pink elephants on parade or anything. You think you hear people chatting behind you, or you see stuff moving just on the edge of your vision. Super creepy and unfun, but not particularly dramatic. This exactly. I have a 10-month-old baby who does not sleep well so neither do I. Nothing that sounds super extreme but when you're woken up every hour all night long for weeks and months on end, the effects add up. It's getting better now, but for a few months I would see things move or lights out of the corner of my eyes. I just learned to ignore it and accept that sleep deprivation hallucinations are just part of being a parent. Edit. Thanks for all the words of encouragement. Fortunately, it is getting better, she writes as she scrolls Reddit at 3 a.m. Nothing that sounds super extreme, but when you're woken up every hour all night long for weeks and months on end, the effects add up. That's been my entire life with sleep apnea. I wake up at least 5 to 6 times every night. As a sleep tech, I'm sure, without a CPAP, you wake up many more times than that every hour. We don't even consider it sleep apnea for 5 times an hour. That's within normal range. Sleep apnea is no fun. I'm sorry. Do most people actually wake up a bunch of times throughout the night and then never remember? What's the normal range? Important thing to note here, sleep apnea isn't simply waking up. The apnea event is actually the person being unable to breathe. So Therese, way worse side effects that go along with it than just sleep deprivation. Anyhow, for your question, I have sleep apnea, it's genetic. So my dad has it too. I remember all throughout my childhood his constant horrible snoring, made family trips a nightmare. Think he was diagnosed around 50. At the point he started using the machine, he was having an event, not breathing more than 60 times per hour. Now I started worrying about myself a lot earlier than he did, got diagnosed a few years back and am on the super duper low end and am still, without a machine, not able to breath about 15 to 20 times per hour. Normal is considered under 4, but my pulmonologist told me if I was a tad bit under 10 they'd look at treatments other than a CPAP. Okay, story time. My mom suffers from narcolepsy and one of the first treatments they gave her basically drove her also completely insane. She was up for 5 days. One day I walked into her bedroom hearing her talking to someone. I look around and ask her who she is talking to and she tells me the lady in red. There is no one in the room at all, just us. I ask where is the lady and she says the lady sits on the dresser and talks to her all night. I was like 14 at the time, so I went to the kitchen and hid her medicine until my stepdad got home and could take her to the hospital. The doctor was super upset about the meds her doctor had given her, it was way too much. Anyway, she stopped seeing the lady after they got all that straightened out. Edit. Alright, I'm going to say it. Wow, this blew up. Thank you all for your thoughtful and kind wishes for my mom. She does have good days and bad days. Her narcolepsy is caused by a small tumor on her brain. She gets better when it shrinks and worse when it grows. It gets to about the size of a dime sometimes. They can't remove it but are trying to keep it shrunk with medicine. That is scary. I check her meds now every time before she takes them. Her doctors have given her meds that don't mix well 2 times now. I am sorry to hear that. I hope your mom is okay. She has more good days than bad, so that is something. Do you fill out her scripts at the same pharmacist at the same time? If so, you might want to switch pharmacists. It's their job to tell you if the doctor ducked up, a dosage is weirdly high, potential side effects, and potential interactions. We got them all at one now, took some time though. She had different doctors giving her different things and filling them at their own pharmacy. We found all the different pharmacies, then had to find one that could fill all the pharmacies. I stayed up for 3 days straight when I was 17. On the 3rd day, I kept hearing people call my name as if they wanted to ask me a question. It didn't help that I also thought it would be a good idea to go to school that day. Multiple times a day, I would bolt upright and look around to see who wanted to my attention, only to see my fellow students huddled over their work. It got worse as the day went. My friends were a little worried about how weird I was acting. I walked home after school, listening to my headphones as usual, but I still kept hearing someone call my name. The music made it worse. Whatever I was hearing was already kind of muffled, and having a song playing in my ears only seemed to obscure it more. When I finally got home, I told my mom I wasn't feeling well, went to my room and went straight to sleep, at 4 in the afternoon. As nodded off, I heard that voice calling for me again, making me jerk out of my sleep. This repeated a couple times until I convinced myself that I already told my mom I was sick and if she really needed me she could come get me. I finally went to sleep and didn't wake until 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, and then went to sleep afterwards again until 9 a.m. the next day. I was an idiot. This is very similar to my experience at about the same age, same amount of time awake. I've always had sleep issues, but I'll never do that again.